Where did that come from? What is that? Is that before Love and Rockets?
Let me think. Was it the devil and he has a bunch of penises hanging off him?
There can't be two of these things, so that must be what it is, right? I mean, unless you had a Mobius penis period.
Yeah,
I mean, can we talk fandom a little bit? Can we talk about some of your influences in a way like we hear the name Harry Lucy because of you in interviews. We hear the name Al Wiseman because of interviews that you've given, but we've never really like seen or like read very much in-depth stuff about like how these people influenced you. The name would come up, but we never really get into the nitty-gritty too much. Yeah. And we made an episode about Dennis Goes to Hawaii. We took some of our own stuff away. Like, you put us on the path to like check this comic out. We dug it, and we had our own takeaways. I wonder what you took away from the work of Al Wiseman to start, we'll say.
Yeah. First of all, Al Wiseman was one half of the Dennis artists. Owen Fitzgerald was the other. Wiseman was the technical, like, perfectly drew whatever he had to, just perfect technically. Owen Fitzgerald was the cartoonist. He was the guy who made Dennis, like, fucking alive, you know. Wiseman, for a long time, did the vacation comics. You know, like he did the Dennis in Hawaii. I didn't remember that one as a kid because it was before my time, and I think we tore it up before, you know, I was old enough. But Gilbert House talked about it. He goes, yeah, there was one about Dennis in Hawaii. And I go, I don't remember that. I remember Dennis Menace in Mexico, Washington, D.C., but I didn't remember that one. But the thing was about those was they used to send the artist and the writer, Wiseman and Toole, to the country, you know, send them to Mexico. They would go, okay, what trouble can Dennis, we're in Acapulco, okay, they got cliff diving. How do we get Dennis to get in trouble there, you know? And he'd probably write stuff, and then Wiseman was like sketching stuff or whatever. But so they were very authentic. I mean, I remember when first time I visited Washington, D.C., I was like, I got into the center of the city, and I just went, oh, that's the Cole building. That's the something building. That's what, and they were going, what the fuck? How do you know? And I go, I don't know how I know that. And I go, oh yeah, it was just from reading Dennis Menace in Washington. And so I know all this stuff about Mexico because Dennis knew it. Dennis told me and stuff like that. And these were really, I guess in a way, I didn't know at the time, but they were very educational comics, you know. I learned more from Dennis Menace comics than I ever did from school. And Wiseman was such a technically perfect artist. You know, what he lacked that Owen Fitzgerald had. Fitzgerald had the soul and the cartooning and bringing the characters alive, but Wiseman had it just down technically. I mean, if he had to draw, if he had to draw the university in Mexico with the big mural on the side, he drew every fucking detail, and that was really impressive. But as a kid, I just thought isn't this what comics are, you know? But yeah, it was just he was just really thorough, and I liked Fitzgerald more, but Wiseman had his part too. Yeah.
So another name that comes to mind when I think of your influences, and a name that I heard for the first time from your lips, essentially, Harry Lucy.
Yeah.
And it was a very fortunate experience for me to dig for comics with you at WonderCon last year or the year before, and one of the questions that I had was like, I get it, like Harry Lucy's cool, but what is it that makes him cool? Like everybody who has been scooping up these old Archie comics do it because you gave them the cosign to do so, but they can't tell me why they like it. So I'd like to hear from you, like what is important about Harry Lucy.
Right. I hate to use this way of explaining it, but I always have to mention the other artists to bounce off of what makes this person greater. But, same with Archie. Archie had several different artists working on different titles. Dan DiCarlo, who everyone knows, did Betty and Veronica. And while DiCarlo's comics were very, they were just perfect summer comics. A Betty and Veronica summer vacation, summer spectacular comic was just like gold. I mean, in the summer, being a little kid, opening Betty and Veronica just hanging out by the pool and then not doing anything, but, and that was just really cool. Just like, this is perfect summer reading and stuff. But there was also the artist. I didn't know their names for a long time, but there was the other artist, like, there was the guy who drew Jughead. That was Sam Schwartz. Didn't know that at the time, but found out later. There was, and then there was Harry Lucy, who I didn't know, who did Archie, the title Archie. And those comics, while DiCarlo was technically perfect cartoonist and just every line just perfect, Lucy was less so technically. It was kind of like Fitzgerald and Weisman. But the Archie ones, as I got older, I liked Archie better. I liked Archie better than Ben and Veronica. And it was just because this guy, he wrote his stories like he'd make the stupidest little story of Archie's trying to get Veronica, but Mr. Lodge is mad at him or something. And he would just write it. He would just make up this really playful story that just worked every time. There wasn't a panel wasted of Archie going, I got, how am I going to get in the house? Looks up. Maybe I'll crawl in the window. And then, but someone comes up behind him and he goes, ugh, and it was just all this body language and stuff. And then Veronica's mad at him and he's like, and she's going, and it's just this perfect body language where these characters are just alive. And I think even if Lucy was trained, because he did detective comics in the 40s and stuff, there was still kind of a lack of technical perfection in his work, but it was just so alive with language and these characters being alive. Reggie and Archie mad at each other or being pals or whatever. They just had a thing, and he had that gravity, which is important, of them leaning against the counter at the chocolate shop, and talking, and oh, this guy thinks he knows what he's talking about because he's acting all cool and stuff. And it was just because he's doing that lean and that perfect, like, and so as I got older and I was starting to do my comics, I started going, I like this Lucy guy, or I like this Archie guy, and it was just something very alive about it that something else couldn't give it. So I would learn from the other artists, but I learned the real thing behind making the lines on paper real with Lucy.
The other big takeaway that I think about whenever I look at your work in relation to Harry Lucy is the storytelling of background characters, where this is something I see in a lot of your strips, where there are characters playing baseball and catching ball and hitting the ball and all this stuff going on in the background, and then there's like the A story that's more in the foreground, and you would see that in Lucy comics too.
Yeah, yeah. Just attention to detail, attention what's around you, you know. Archie's walking down the street thinking about something, yet there's shit going on in your neighborhood. And I guess a lot of that was, I felt that was my neighborhood. You know, like, I get this thing. And so I played that up with my stuff. You know, I knew, you know, you go to the park, you walk to the park, and then on the baseball field they're practicing or whatever, but you keep going, and then there's a guy sitting on a park bench by himself, or there, you know, and it's just like it just makes it life, you know, and that's real important to me.
So you didn't know the names of these artists initially because they were largely uncredited on the actual page. Was it through fandom that you discovered who the heck the good Archie artist is, in the same way that you know, the good duck artist turned out to be Carl Barks?
Yeah. He was the good duck artist for his whole life, you know, before he became the guy who created the perfect Donald Duck comics. I remember in interviews going, I like that Archie guy. This was early on, going, I like the guy who drew Archie. And then artists would come around and go, hey, I know who that is, but they would always be wrong. You know, I remember one time at a convention being going to the bathroom and in the urinals, and Bill Sienkiewicz was a couple of urinals down. He goes, hey, Jaime, I found out who that Archie artist was. His name is Bob Bug. And I went, Bob Bug, I can't wait to tell Gilbert. And we're just kind of being... and then I tell Gilbert, and then later we find out, no, that's not him, you know. And but yeah, I don't remember the exact time I found out his name, but I do remember that Scott Dunbier, the guy, I remember he said, hey, guess what? Harry Lucy died, and his wife wants to sell art, so you better jump on it. And I go, one of my 3 favorite artists in the whole world dies, and you want me to go scoop up his art? You know, like, that's all you think about. Yeah, I remember being pissed about that. Like, the guy died. He lived in Arizona. What? You know, like, I didn't know this shit.
Right.
You know.
One of thinking about fandom, this past weekend, we lost Bill Shelley, guy who writes a bunch of
He really?
I hate to break that to you here. Yeah.
Huh.
Like yesterday, he died. He had cancer.
Wow.
Yeah. So I'm curious if you had any association before you were making comics, like when he was so entrenched in fandom, alter ego editor. Did you ever correspond with him before?
No. Actually, I didn't really notice him till he started doing the books for Fantagraphics, like the old stuff. You know, the Bill Everett stuff,
right? Okay.
and stuff. So yeah, I didn't have the connection from that.
What kind of connection did you have with other comics fans outside of your brothers? Did you guys send away for weird, obscure fanzines that were mimeographed or anything like that?
Yeah. It all started out when Gilbert looked at in a Marvel comic. He looked at the classifieds, and it said "Comic Collector's Handbook, 35 cents" or whatever. And Gilbert was like, "I've got 35 cents." And he went to Mario and he goes, "Should I?" Mario goes, "Why not?" Gilbert got this mimeographed little fanzine, and it was basically crude drawings copied or even traced from old 40s comics, and it would be like the Black Terror, and the guy would type on a typewriter. He would say, the Black Terror started in something something comics in 1941, blah, 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 blah. And we were like, what the fuck is this? And Gilbert was like, oh my God, this is like amazing. I don't know who this guy, Flexo, who the fuck is that? And he was just like, oh my God. So he sent for the second issue. And he was just like, this is awesome. I don't know what this is, but this is awesome. I mean, it helped that my mom would go like, oh yeah, the Black Terror. Yeah, he was a good comic, he's this and that. Captain Marvel. Oh yeah. The Spirit. Oh, But, and in the back of it, it had an ad for Rocket's Blast Comic Collector. And Mario sent for that. And it was I don't know if it was monthly or whatever, but it was a magazine that had fan art in it, all through it. But it had ads, it had like, I'm selling my comic collection, and they would have this long list of Golden Age comics and stuff, and that started like my brothers going like, oh my God, what is this? Who are these characters? Who is what is this? And it was all these just fans putting these fanzines out, these really cheaply done things, and it was just really cool. But one thing I liked was a lot of the fan art in it was not that good, and I kind of related to that, like, look at this guy. This guy can't draw, but I loved it. It was like some guys would have an ad that goes, "Need an artist? Well, here I am." And he would have a drawing of Captain America and Namor, and it was just all like, but it was just like this love for this, like, oh look, there's people out there just doing this shit, and I don't know how it actually like inspired us, but there was just something about this, like, these people are into this, and it doesn't matter how talented you are, you just want to do this stuff, and that just really, and that started to get Mario to send for a lot of like the fanzines like Squatron and Wits End, which was Wally Wood's fanzine. So a lot of professionals who were working in the business were like doing their own thing on the side. It's almost like that was their alternative comics, and it was just really, for me, I was still a little kid, so it was kind of like, ooh, you're drawing those barbarian girls without tops, and I was like, Mom's gonna get mad at us. And so Mario would hide those. He had his Marvel comics out, but he would hide those. Reed Crandall drawing like John Carter stuff, and Deja Thoris just has a little G-string, and that was like, what? And so I don't know. For me, it's just this weird world, this like, this is awesome, man. But Mom's gonna kill us, yet this is the world. This is how the world exists. It's not just the latest Fantastic Four comic, and it was just really, I don't know how it shaped me, but there was something different, made me think different, and it was just really, really cool. I mean, if you ever interview Gilbert for this show, he'll just tell you 10 times more than I'm telling you right now.
Did the undergrounds factor into this experience, like around this era when Wits End started happening? Did the names like Robert Crumb come into your consciousness, or is that way later?
Yeah. Oh no, because at the same time there would be an ad, and it would be something cut out from Zap, and it would have like a mom, big giant mom ripping up a kid's comics going, "You little brat, comics are terrible for you." We'd be like, what the hell is this? You know, and then I remember at the same time, like while we were getting Mad Magazine cracked and stuff in the mid '60s, all of a sudden this magazine that was kind of like that, it was Wonder Warthog by Gilbert Shelton, and we're like, okay, what is this? Oh, this is like Mad. This is like cartoons. This is like, you know, all that stuff. I just thought it was like, okay, this is different from other stuff, and Wonder Warthog. I had no idea Gilbert Shelton was doing this in papers and collecting them in these and this stuff, and it had nothing to do with other stuff that was going on, and but to me it was just normal. Like, okay, this is just weird comics. Mad's weird. Creepy and eerie comics are weird because they're black and white. Marvel and DC are color. These are black and white, and they show blood. You know, it was like ooh, okay, it's just a different world, you know. But as a little kid, I was just like, that's blood. I've never seen blood before in comics. But and then the undergrounds, we didn't know that Wonder Warthog was kind of leading us toward this underground thing. And Gilbert, this is arguable, but in Oxnard, California, where I grew up, we had this head shop that is arguably the first head shop in Southern California.
Can you call out its name? Do you remember it?
Jim Salzer's Mercantile. And Mario and Gilbert used to go in there. Kids from our neighborhood would go in there because it was like weird. Oh, they got weird pipes.
What's the smell?
Yeah. And one time Gilbert walked in, he saw magazines, different hippie magazines and stuff, papers. And then he saw this one comic, and it was Zap Comics #2, I think. And it was a picture of a guy going, and his head is exploding, and all this stuff's coming out. It was a Crumb cover, and Gilbert goes, all right, what's wrong with the world? You know, what the fuck is this? This is comics. What the fuck is this? And he goes, Mario, you got to buy this. You got to buy this. He didn't know why. It was just like, Mario, you got to buy this because it's comics, but can't figure out why or what. And Mario bought it. And then they were like, oh, we like this guy who calls himself Crumb. We like the way he cartoons. We like this other guy, Shelton. Oh, this is kind of guy that draws like Wonder War. Oh, it is the guy that draws Wonder War. You know, and so they were doing this, but I was still too young for this. I was just like, Mom's gonna kill us. I can't look at this stuff because Mom's gonna kill us. I'll stick with the kid comics. But yeah, that's how that started happening. So the only way I can explain it is that my two brothers, Mario and Gilbert, were just very curious people because they had no one to show this to them. Usually someone has an older sibling or somebody to go, hey, check this out. But for some reason, Mario and Gilbert goes, look, that's comics. We got to check that out. And they just had this curiosity just inbred in them that just made them very curious. So that's why every kind of comic was just coming into the house, even if most of it was being hidden, you know, in a drawer.
Right. At what point do you guys start submitting to fanzines and being more part of the culture? Was it for Comics Journal? Was that the first time you guys sent in spot illustrations and stuff?
No, it was Mario had moved out, and Gilbert and I were on our own to keep the comic collections going. And we were still once in a while getting Rocket's Blast Comic Collector, RBCC. And some of the ads would say, hi, I have a thing called Space Zine. If you want to contribute, send your illustration, and maybe you'll be in the magazine. And we're like, hey, that's pretty cool. You mean you get just published just like that? I mean, we had no concept of like, this will make us rich. It was just like, oh, you get to be in a magazine. So Gilbert started to just go, I'm going to send him a thing. And then I remember I started buying the Buyer's Guide, which at that time was the Buyer's Guide for Comic Fandom before it was the Comics Buyer's Guide. And I started subscribing to it. And that was just kind of like Rocket's Blast. It was just a newspaper with like, here, buy my comic collection and stuff like that. But once in a while they would have fanzines, same thing. And I remember there was this one called Fandom Circus, and some guy wrote this forum letter on a page and just said come by, submit your story to my comic and I will print it. And I was just like, how hard can that be? I was about 16 or 17. I was like, okay, I get to draw a comic, and maybe it'll be in a thing. And so Mario and Gilbert were planning their way of conquering the comic universe because they were trying their own thing. And I just go, okay, I'm gonna send a 4-page comic to this Phantom Circus. And I sent, I just graduated high school. I didn't know what I was doing, but I just wanted to. So I did this barbarian story, kind of based on, loosely off of Barry Smith's Conan when he started to do that really textured inking and stuff. The Red Sonja days, Song of Red Sonja and Red Nails and all that.
That was classic.
Yeah, and so I sent this story to this guy, and he goes, "Oh, great, thanks for sending me. I'll print it." Simple as that, And I remember it was the summer after I graduated high school, and I was just like, I was 17, and I was just like, "Hey, I'm going to be in a magazine," and Gilbert and Mario were like, "What? You're going to be in a magazine?" So I sent this, and it was printed, and he sent me it took a while, so by 1978, I got this copy,
And what was the magazine called?
Fandom Circus.
Fandom Circus, number 2. Send it to P.O. Box 3071, Monroe, Pennsylvania, 15120. Okay.
2 copies, please.
Yeah, that'll break the channel. Like the channel will dissolve if only one copy comes our way.
And Fandom Circus number 1 had this superhero called Foxfire, done by this unknown named Jerry Ordway.
You could send that one to Jim's house. So that was like age 17, 18?
I was 17. It was about 1977, yeah.
Were you doing a lot of comics and just didn't have an outlet for, like, how do we publish these or where do we send them? Because, like, 4-page comics, that's not nothing to start with,
Right. At the time, that was the only thing I worked on, and then pretty soon I started to just send, like, an illustration of a woman in an astronaut outfit, and then a snake slithering around her, kind of, just images, and it was like in different zines that, and I remember I did one called, I can't remember what it was called, but it was my first Maggie story, and it was just some stupid story about some alien guy waiting at a bus stop, and he was going, and it was some one-line joke, but Maggie was the person waiting for the bus in the background. She was just kind of scratching her head and stuff. And but that stuff I started to do stuff like that didn't make quite sense because I got into my Mobius period, because heavy metal came out in 77. They were reprinting stuff from Metal Hurlant. So we were getting all the French artists, Italian artists, all these artists from all world, and they were like, this ain't superheroes. This is just silly, surrealistic science fiction. But I liked that freedom. I liked that it was not, it wasn't tied down by that Marvel world that by the 70s, I was just like, oh my God, if you ain't Marvel, you ain't nobody, you know? And so heavy metal, and also had American artists like Richard Corbin, who was doing Den at the time, and I just loved it. I just loved the freedom of it. And so I started to send stuff to different fanzines in that way. And and I would get these answers like, this is a very interesting story. And I just go, it's a silly story, just print it, And so to answer your question, yeah, after a while Gilbert was just writing complete stories on his own. I was writing complete stories on my own. We had nowhere to take them. We had nowhere to send them. I was like, who's gonna print this? Like the same guy who did my first story, Phantom Circus. I wrote this whole Maggie space opera 3-parter, and I was like, what do you think of this? A lot of it was based on Star Wars because I had seen Star Wars, and that was the only way to draw science fiction at that time, because Star Wars just swallowed up the universe, and you don't do it any other way but Star Wars. And it was about Maggie and race. They were the space mechanics who had to fix the something to help the galaxy and stuff like that. And I just created this story about, kind of based on 50s low-budget science fiction and this modern Star Wars fiction. So Maggie is introduced by, she drives up in a convertible with a scarf, 50s headscarf, and she picks up race, and they go to this job and stuff like that. And it was just all this stuff that was like inspiring me from all ends, from old low budget movies to Twilight Zone episodes to old like Son of Kong movies. And I was just like, I want to do movies where the guy wears a suit from the 30s, yet it's space. He's in outer space. This woman mechanic, she's got a hair from the 40s, and she drives this space car through the desert. I was just always just inspired by this stuff, and I was just building this stuff, but Gilbert and I just had nowhere to take this stuff. And I remember the guy from Phantom Circus goes, hey, I think I'll print this as a comic. And he never did. He never did. He ended up just sending me the art back and going, I'm not into this anymore. And I was like, okay, I got this Maggie the Mechanic. What the hell am I going to do with this? And I was just getting older. And then I went through this phase where I was just like, I want these characters to do something. I want these characters to like be something. Maggie's gonna cut her hair because I'm punk, so she's punk. She's gonna be a space mechanic, but she's gonna wear punk buttons and have short spiky hair and pointed boots and stuff. But it's just nowhere to go. I know I'm going away from your question, but that's what it was. We didn't, like, to answer your question, we had all this stuff building, just nowhere to go. And that's basically how Love and Rockets ended up. When it was time to do Love and Rockets, it was just kind of like, all right, let's put our whole life into this thing. That's why the first issue is just everything of our lives just thrown into this thing. And then it started to shape when I would go, hey, I like this part of it. I like this part of it. And the comic grew.
It's interesting to think how unique those comics are, and you wonder, like, without an editor or a publisher there to shape that early on, it allowed you all to figure it out, you know, organically, but to go in these directions that if you had an outlet for it, if an editor was there early, they might have been like, no, go in this direction that, you know, is more of the tried and true and more of the same. But instead you were left to your own to be like, we're going to work this out ourselves because we don't know what the outlet is. We don't have that person.
Yeah. But at the same time, Gilbert and I had this self-editing thing where we go, okay, no one's telling us what to do, but if I put this out there, I'm speaking to grown-ups here, and I gotta seem like a grown-up, you know. So we had this self-editing thing, and that kind of helped us where we basically don't have an editor in Love and Rockets. We haven't had one in a long time, you know, and it was just because we just had this responsibility to do this like grown-ups do, you know.
You're talking about all these different comics that you went out and found and, you know, almost like hungry for comics. I had a question about a couple of Mexican comics. One is like historietas. Is that something that you guys came across? They're, you know, like, I don't know, I'm saying that wrong, or maybe they're called something.
We didn't see a lot of comics from Mexico. We did some, but not a lot because we were so immersed in American stuff. You know, I remember Mario started collecting Memín comics, which is, he's like a iconic Mexican character, but he's a little black kid that looks like a monkey. And I remember about 20, 30 years ago, it was a big controversy because they wanted to put him on a stamp. And they're going, you're not going to put no black kid that looks like a monkey on a stamp. And they were like, but he's iconic, you know, and stuff like that. But Mario was buying that one for a while. But not a lot. Not a lot of Mexican comics came into.
This is potentially a question that comes before Love and Rockets. I just don't know, and I'm going to need you to clarify. But I was in Seattle, and I was digging through this trove of original art that Gary Groth has. And there is a Mobius period, Jaime Hernandez page in there with, the way I see it in my mind, there's like an Arzach character, and there's a monster made of penises. Where did that come from? What is that? Is that before Love and Rockets?
Let me think. Was it the devil, and he has a bunch of penises hanging off him?
There can't be two of these things, so that must be what it is, right? I mean, unless you had a Mobius penis period. Yeah,
that was a page I did for. Gary thought, well, these guys do Love and Rockets, and they do it pretty quick. Let's get them to do other stuff. So he goes, I got this writer friend, Jan Sternad, who wants to do this comic called Goblin Child. You know, do you think you could do that? Gary thought I could just take on a graphic novel on the side. And even as a youngster, I was just like, I don't want to draw this thing, you know? So I took the funnest page out of it. And it's where they do this ritual, and the goblins are all dancing around, and then they conjure up the devil. And so I do this really detailed monster, and the devil's going, you know, who would steal the devil's teen? And I thought, what's uglier? The devil is the ugliest thing that you would ever see. Well, what could I do? Okay, he'll have dicks just hanging off. So that's where that came from. And I never like finished the comic. I just go, here's the page, and I felt so guilty that I go, Gary, you can have the page.
Yeah, man, I thought I knew all Jaime comics, and then when I saw that thing, it's like, wow, there might be 100 of these pages somewhere. I had the privilege of eating dinner with you at conventions and stuff a bunch of times, man, and through conversation. One of the questions you said you've never been asked because the journalists are chicken shits, man, and afraid to ask the question. Because they always
Throw it at me.
They always keep it relegated to the comics and all that. What was the influence of like just Mexican American culture, and would lowrider culture fit into that? Like,
Yeah.
let's get that piece of 11 Rockets on the record.
Right. Well, that happened to me before punk. Before punk, when I was, 15, 16, 17, I hung out on the street with my friends, and we went lowrider cruising and thought we were badass gangsters, and we would hang out, cruise on Sunday nights and hang out and call each other and stuff like that. So most of the journalists go, oh, you were into the punk scene and you learned this and you were freed by the punk scene. And I go, yeah, I was freed, but I was prepared by the street scene that I grew up on. The street scene of like, you wear the dicky khakis, you wear the certain jacket, you wear the certain Crocs, winos, or else you ain't cool, and part of me didn't want to do that, but at the same time it was like, okay, I gotta save face, and I gotta do this thing, because at the same time I like white boy rock music, but I was hanging out with Mexicans and doing the whole look and stuff, but I would go home and listen to Mata Hoople and Kiss and stuff. But it was this rich kind of thing, like, you'd go cruising and then you had to sit 6 guys in a car. You had to sit in the right corner. You had to like okay, 2 guys in the front, 3 in the back. All right, that's cool. We're all cool. All right, 3 in the front, 2 in the back. Won't do. Won't do. Okay, 2 guys in the front, 1 in the back. You don't sit on that side. You don't sit in the center. You sit on this side. It was just like the rules were just like if you're going to be cool, it's going to be that. So, of course, 6 guys in a car, driving and cruising. You're driving, and then most of them look at each other and go, ready? Go! 2 guys on the side, duck down. And so you see this guy in the center, in the back of the car. That car ain't cool. And they would do shit like that. And then, like, if a woman was driving with you, she didn't sit in the back. She sat in the center between the 2 guys. And it was all that. And I remember at times going, God, this is crazy. But at the same time going, yeah, you got to do that, man. And that's our culture, and that's us, man. And so now I think proudly of it, like oh yeah, fuck, you ain't gonna drive like that, you gotta, if you want to be cool. But yeah, the whole thing about where they would duck and let one guy look like an asshole. That was the best.
A lot of car interior shots in 11 Rockets. I'm going to have to start counting the bodies and where they're sitting and how many people are in the front and the back. You mentioned punk rock. You mentioned just like the car culture and stuff. I think it's 11 Rockets 3 or 4 where the word homeboy is used, and that might be the first printed use of the word homeboy, certainly in a comic. Maybe almost anywhere.
Right.
So what is that? Like, how would you hear those kinds of slangs?
Yeah, well, I heard that, as a kid. He was my homeboy. Or homeboy, I remember at first I heard homeboy as an insult. Like, homeboy, you're a dork. You live at home. And then I started hearing it going, he's my homeboy. Homeboy. I heard it from Mexicans mostly. I didn't know it came from black culture. So homie and all that. So now, to this day, I talk about my childhood friends. I call them my homies. You know, it goes back further, you know. But, yeah, you know, people yeah, he's my homie. He's my homeboy. You know, hey, Holmes, you know, stuff like that. I remember I thought for a long time it was Holmes, like a last name. Right. So that's why Speedy in Death of Speed calls him Holmes.
Right.
And I went, oh shit, no, they're saying Holmes. Ooh, well, okay. And I go, well, that's Hopper slang. That's their own thing. Saved my ass.
We're now at the Love and Rockets era then. Self-published. That's a very punk rock statement for you guys to put that comic together, do it on your own. Did you submit it first, or it was always something that was intended to be your own creation?
It was supposed to be our own thing that we were going to sell and make money off of. We had no concept. There was no alternative market. We were kind of naively thinking about the old fanzines that we grew up on, that we submitted to, but that wasn't a market, you know. But, you know, part of us was also like, well, we don't care. We're going to do that. We did this, you know. It'll get out there somehow. Crickets, right. You know. You know, and then Gilbert sent the copy to the Comics Journal to be reviewed, and turned out Gary Groth wrote a 3-page review of it, loving it, and said, can we publish this? We're like, Gilbert remembers going, I don't know, I kind of think we should just do it ourselves. Clong, you know? And we just like, sure, fine, you know. Yeah. No concept, no alternative market to base it on, you know. So.
You know something, a lot of the people that we have talked to in these interviews, they're about to get out of comics, and it is Love and Rockets that brings them back into comics in a big way. And it reminds me of that joke in Watchmen, the Pagliacci the Clown joke, where the guy goes to the psychiatrist and is like, I'm depressed, I'm sad, I'm this and that. And the psychiatrist goes, listen, Pagliacci the Clown is coming to town, go see him. You're going to enjoy it, you're going to have a good time, it's going to get you out of the depression. And he starts crying, I am Pagliacci the Clown. And it's like, it's your comic that brought people back into comics. They were going away, but you had heavy metal. Like, heavy metal is what you lay out to us as like the thing that like inspired you and kept you in the game as an alternative to like the Werewolf by Night and the Marvel comics of the 70s. It's I'm glad we got that on the record.
When are we going to talk about Namor?
So once again, man, okay. Me flexing about having the privileged position of getting to eat dinner with you at these conventions and stuff. You told me the story of how you sort of got reacquainted with, what'd you call it, your wife, your partner? I don't know what the
right.
What the kids these days call it, man. But you told me the whole sort of tale about how you guys sort of like connected and got reconnected. And I'm like, this is a Love and Rocket strip, man. Can we get that on the record? I don't think I've ever read that one in print. But if you're not comfortable talking about it, man, obviously don't do it.
Oh, I'll tell the story.
Yeah, it's a good story.
I don't know what she'll think, but... yeah, okay, so I was a punk rocker, 1981, about the same time we're starting Love and Rockets. No future, you know, hanging out in Oxnard, bored to hell, you know. Friend of ours comes over with his car, and me and my younger brother and him get in the car, and we just drive around visiting friends. Like, what you doing? Oh, I can't hang out with you guys today. I gotta go do the. So then we go to someone else's house and stuff, and so we end up in Ventura, which is next to Oxnard. We go to a friend of ours, punk girl's house. And she answers the door, and we're like, "Hi, Becca. Hi. Hey, how's it going? We're just hanging out. We have nothing to do, you know. We're just..." And she's on the phone. She goes, "Can you guys hold on a second?" And then she's on the phone, and we're just kind of like hanging out, like, you know, nothing to do. And she goes, "Hey, can you help me? Can you give me a ride to Pasadena to pick up my friend who's running away from home?" And we go, "Pasadena? Where the fuck is Pasadena?" "Okay, that's near LA. I know it's kind of..." Yeah. And we go, "Sure." We had nothing to do, and so we drive her to Pasadena, and we're driving through this, you know, parts of Pasadena are really beautiful, old style houses, really cool architecture and stuff, and we're going through this neighborhood, and we come to this house, which is kind of a little upper class, you know, and then we like pull up, and then I think our friend Becca runs in, and then they come out, and her friend comes out, and it's this little spiky-haired punk girl with a trash bag, and we pick her up, and we go, "Oh, I guess we're gonna go take her back to Oxnard, you know, and stuff." And she's like, "Hi, this is Meg," and this is "Oh, okay, you know, oh, hi, Meg." And I just remember going, wow, an LA punk girl, like big city. It was fucking Pasadena. And she gets in the car, and they don't want to go home. They're just like, "Hey, let's go visit someone in Pico Rivera." So we drive out, you know, past East LA, you know, we're like out there, and we visit this guy who's in another punk band, and the whole day we're just going different places. "Let's go to Okie Dog." You know, Okie Dog was a big punk hangout at the time. And so we go to Okie Dog, and you know, we're just hanging out, but we're like, "Hey, we're hanging out with LA punks. Hey, cool." And then we finally make it back to Ventura, and we drop her off, and this girl Meg, she stays in Ventura, in Oxnard, and she's just hanging out, and so she starts hanging out at our parties and stuff like that, and pretty soon get to know her, you know. "Hey, Meg." And she's the girl with the cigarette frozen in her hand the whole time, and I just love her spirit. She's just got this really. This has helped shape Hopi. She just had this loud, foul mouth. Cigarette never left her hand, you know, whatever. And I just got, you know, I kind of crushed on her, but, you know, never thought anything of it. But she was like, she was just this cool rebel, you know, girl. And I was like, that's like the LA punk girls that I see at the shows, the little girls with the spiky hair who have got louder mouths than everybody, but they're like littler than everybody, and I just love that thing, and that's how I created Hopi. And so this girl Meg hangs out a lot, and then and then one day she gets out of the scene and disappears. Like, "I can't do this anymore. I don't want to party anymore." And she moves away and stuff, but she kept my friendship for some reason. She would write me postcards and go, "Hi, I'm living in Oakland now," you know, or whatever. And she and I was like, why did Meg keep my friendship overall? She had 1 million friends in the punk scene, but I was one of the few people that she kept in touch with, and years passed, and then I remember we did this, Gilbert and I did this Love and Rockets 40 city tour in '92, and I remember stopping off in San Francisco at like Comics Experience or something like that, and Meg shows up. She's like, "Hi, it's me, how you been?" And I'm like, "Oh, wow, you know, I haven't seen you in a long time," and she goes, "I want you to meet my girlfriend," and stuff like that. And I'm like, oh, okay, Meg came up. I guess I knew that, but I didn't know that. And so anyway, and then I saw her, and then we went home, and then I would hear from Meg through a postcard or whatever. I'd write her and stuff, and then I was married to someone else, and then I got divorced, and then this was about year 2000. I had a girl, I went through girlfriends and stuff like that, and then a mutual friend contacted Gilbert's wife and said, "Hey, Meg wants to get a hold of Jaime. She wants to see how he's doing. And can you have her number?" And I'm like, okay, cool. And and so she calls me, and we're like, "Hey, how you been? Hi." And she goes, "Hi, I have a daughter, a little daughter. I'd like you to meet. I'm back in Pasadena." I was like, okay. And then I go to visit, and she has this 1.5-year-old daughter, and we're hanging out, and it's like catching up and stuff, and then we start dating, and then we got married a year later.
Coming to these shows and meeting people, it really does seem that sort of the best cartoonists are also just good natural storytellers, and that's one of my favorite Jaime stories, man. I had to get that on the record. But just in talking about LA, talking about the punk scene, one of the other kind of cartooning things that LA is known for really is like Matt Groening, Life in Hell, and all of that. You guys were established before he was, but in a lot of interviews that he would give, certainly when Simpsons kind of first came out, he would talk about kind of like his humble beginnings, and when he would go to signings, and it would sometimes be packed together with like a Love and Rocket signing, and he would always say, "Man, Jaime and Gilbert, their line would be out the door and nobody would be there to see me."
Lies, all lies.
See, I know that. I just wanted that on record, man. So, like, expand on that.
Yeah. Well, no, because Groening was the guy. I mean, Life in Hell was it was in the LA Weekly, but it was just like, it was huge, And this is pre-Simpsons, but he was still like this famous guy. He claims that we stole his thunder at the signing, but it was like, yeah, right. And this was, not that long before Simpsons. It's said that he was trying to do the Bradleys, Pete Baggs Bradleys, but I don't know how true.
Meaning the Simpsons is the Bradleys?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting, man. We have controversy on the channel.
Yeah, I don't know how true that is,
Sure,
but
yeah.
I just remember something like that, like, hey, Pete, he's trying to do the Bradleys,
When you talk about that era of Groening as well, like Gary Panter's out there too, I guess. Did you ever connect with him? I mean, he's considered, his art is punk art when you read about it. So did you know his work?
Yeah, in the early days of punk, he would do flyers, and he would do, there was a punk newspaper called Slash, and I would subscribe to it, and it would always have Panter art. Like he did the Screaming Head for the Screamers, the band The Screamers. He would do flyers. He did Jimbo in Slash. That's where that first showed up. And I remember going, I really like this. This kid must be pretty cool. I didn't know he was doing the primitive art thing. But so it was Panter, then Pettibone later, Sean Carey. They were just the artists who did a lot of the LA punk stuff. It's funny because Sean Carey was the only woman. She, I think her art was the most iconic of the LA scene. She did the Circle Jerks Kid, Skanking Kid. You know, she did stuff like that, and I thought that was a bigger impact than the two other artists, you know. But that's, I'm sure, debatable. But yeah, that was really cool stuff, because it was comics to me. It was just like, this is comics, you know. You come out of a punk show, a guy's giving out flyers for a Black Flag show, and you get a Pettibone drawing, and it doesn't make sense, but it'll say Black Flag flyer number 13. I go, I'm gonna collect these, you know. Of course, I couldn't get them all, but yeah, that was just fun, because we're like, this is like comics, man. This is comics and punk. See, I knew it. Rock and roll, punk, wrestling, stupid science fiction movies. It all belongs. It's all the same. That kind of what kind of also stirred the Love and Rockets thing. Like, this is all belongs, and it's all to be taken seriously. And so that helped me a lot, you know. Anything that was done like a comic, man, you're just drawn to. Whether it was an ad in a magazine or something, it just always like, comics, man, comics.
You mentioned wrestling there. Obviously, we're, you know, big wrestling fans. You figured, like, your stories with wrestling are kind of where wrestling is now, in that we get, you know, wrestlers talking about road stories, behind the scenes stories, you know, kind of the truth behind wrestling. In the early 80s, I feel like that stuff was very protected. How did you know kind of behind the scenes stuff about wrestling?
Well, you know, grew up on wrestling. Wrestling's secret didn't come out till McMahon wanted to make money and said, wrestling is fake. Wrestling fans flipped. Old wrestling fans just, you fucker, you just blew it. Because for the longest time it was like, is wrestling fake? And wrestling fans were just so fucking diehard, they'd go, it's like, you figure it out, fucker. And it was McMahon that just kind of blew it all up. Just said, yes, it is fake. Give me more money.
Right.
You know.
Jaime, what was the California territory before McMahon? Like that you guys would have, like, who was the promoter who would run that thing?
It was NWA. The LaBelles ran LA wrestling, and it was out of the Olympic Auditorium.
Who would be some of the stars of that?
When I was a little kid, it was like the Destroyer, Freddie Blassie, the Sheik, Boba Brazil. They were all the heroes who were always traveling. You know, going up the coast. They were the heroes up in San Francisco too. They were the heroes down in San Diego, San Bernardino. And then they would go across the country and stuff, because Blassie was all over the place. He was in New York, he was in LA. But yeah, those were the biggest stars when I was a little kid, like mid-60s. And then by about 70, it was Blassie was everyone's hero. And Mil Mascaras. Mil Mascaras was the first superstar masked guy in the States. Santo was in Mexico, and he was making movies already by then.
Sure.
But Mil Mascaras was like the man of 1,000 masks. He flies through the air and stuff like that. And I just remember being at school and kids going, Mil Mascaras could take on Black Gordman for hair versus mask match. That's gonna be big. And you know, they're talking about it like so serious. Like this is gonna be huge. And I just remember going, oh man, wish I could watch that, because it would be like on a channel that we got fuzzy, you know, that we couldn't see or something. But that was just cool. It was just exciting, and so it was, you know, up to this mid-70s, and it was still local. It was still local out of LA, but it was mostly on the Spanish station now, you know, so it was in broadcast in Spanish. Then by the late 70s, the McMahon started to spread. And that's when territory started to get less territory. He brought it global, where you were watching wrestling from one place all across the country. In the old days, it was always like Minneapolis had theirs, you know, LA had theirs, New York had theirs, different, all these different territories, Mid-South and stuff like that, you know. And they had, and I kind of like that better because I don't know who the hell these guys are down in Texas, but they're trying just as hard, you know, and I really like that. And but you know, it was McMahon who just said, no, we're going to take it globally. You're going to watch one wrestling, and it's going to spread all over.
Would you and your brothers collect the magazines?
Every once in a while, we would see them. I remember when I was really little, there was my cousin Davey next door, who was a big kid. He bought a bunch of porn for the bigger kids to look at, naked books as we call them, but he bought wrestling magazines to like disguise it, so our tias and my mom wouldn't think there was anything dirty. But he was showing the big kids the dirty books, and I remember as a little kid, I just looked at the wrestling magazines. I was just like, whoa! And then you would see the Sheik, he throws fire, you know, and there's a picture of him going, and his face is all fucking bloody. You know, like this is life, man. You know? And yeah, because I remember the Sheik wouldn't wrestle on TV because he was threw fire in the guys' faces and he cut. I mean, he was always cut, so he couldn't be shown on TV. And I was seriously, for the longest time, even up to a teenager, I was scared of the Sheik. I was going, this guy's really crazy. This guy is really fucking crazy. And the big art collector in L.A., Glenn Bray, he, you know who I'm talking about? Yeah. Yeah, he was a big wrestling fan because he went to the Olympic in the early 60s. He saw Gorgeous George and those older guys. I remember one time I was going, the Sheik is the only guy I'm still afraid of. And he goes, I got a video of him in the back of a limousine just talking shit. And I just go, you just blew my whole fucking childhood. You know, and he goes, what? What'd I say? Yeah, but that was good. That was good shit. Even I gotta say, even the early WWF, you know, before it was WWE, I thought it was funny as hell because it just had that wrestling humor that exists nowhere in the world but there, and most people outside of that don't understand that this is its own humor, and this is funnier than anything you guys got, you know. And I just remember, you know, watching TV and you know, here comes, okay, we're going to interview Ric Flair. Comes with his $1,000 suit, shades, doesn't say a thing, just goes. And you could hear, and then he starts that, what's causing all this? And the people just hate it or love it, you know, and it's just drawing you in, going, go Rick, go. And he's just talking shit, and he's like, takes his shoe off and goes, this shoe costs more than your house. Because he's the coolest guy, and I'm going, go Rick, go. And then his enemy, Dusty Rhodes comes on, best mouth in the history of the world, just talking, and the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes, and he's counting. And it was just like God, nothing like this, nothing. And of course, I mean, I'm old now, so I'm like, oh, they don't do it any good anymore. Blah, 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 blah. But
yeah, you're not gonna apologize for that, man. I do that regularly on this channel.
Yeah, just that boast. I mean, when you think of it, these guys were jocks. These were the guys you hated in high school, but they were just funny as hell, and they just had that posturing that goes back to Gorgeous George, that I have the gold lux, you are all peasants, just working the audience. I mean, Freddie Blassie used to work up the audience so bad, he inspired Muhammad Ali to do his manipulating, how he would just control Joe Frazier and stuff. He learned that from Blassie, a wrestler. Just almost like our own little secret, secret world that was just better than anything.
What do you got going on right now, man? I know are you still on a tour?
No, I'm just doing a lot of shows.
Oh, yeah?
Because I get to see my friend Kitty Skelly.
Yeah. What kind of shows do you have going on right now? Anything coming up for the rest of the year?
After this, in a couple of weeks, I'm going to do CXC in Columbus, and then after that I'm doing Mice in Cambridge, I think that is. Yeah. And then after that I don't have anything, but someone will ask, Yeah, it's not a tour, it's just I'm just doing a lot of shows. Yeah.
Cool. Super cool. And what is the new book for everybody out there?
The latest collection is the Tonta book. It's collecting her stories. She was a new character. I created all these new characters after Love Bunglers, because Love Bunglers just dried me up of Maggie's World because it was just so overwhelming. I just said, I'm going to create 20 new characters, and that created the Tonta universe, and that's what this collection is. Yeah, and other than that, I'm just still continuing Love and Rockets as we always have.
That's awesome, man. It's getting late, Jaime. It's past all of our bedtimes, man. So we should get the heck out of here.
Okay.
Do you want to point the audience to your Instagram or anything like that? When does the magazine come out usually? Is it every?
It's supposed to be 3 times a year. I think it's still 3 times a year.
Yeah.
Should be 4, but. One just came out earlier in the month, and so the next one will come out 10 years from now. But yeah.
I want to thank you for sitting with us, and that's in the short term. And I want to thank you very much for the contribution you made to the culture of comics in the long term. You broke down doors that we all were able to walk in with great ease, man, and I appreciate it very, very much. Thanks for coming by.
My
Look forward
pleasure.
to talking more off the record.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Jaime.